Hiya guys, how you doing? As you can see, as you can hear, as you already know, it's absolutely wild out there today. I'm sheltering up here, but I will deliver the rest of this video from home. I've just lost my microphone, it blew off, so horrendous conditions for Newcastle to be training in over there today. Eddie Howe says they are training, but their travel plans for tomorrow's match against Southampton sound like they're disrupted. It sounds as though they're going to head down tomorrow morning by plane. My travel this week, I was over in Paris, I had a flight cancelled, a couple more delayed severely, and this storm obviously is even severely worse today than it was earlier in the week. So yeah, it sounds like they won't travel down today to Southampton. Instead they'll have to leave first thing tomorrow. God, isn't too good. I'm going to get off here. Anyway, rest of the video from home. Cheers guys. Right, how you all doing? That's certainly a lot better. A lot more calm and serene back home here in the house, but I've had a really interesting last couple of hours. Firstly, I want to apologise for any sound issues, which of course there were in that brief intro that I had for the training ground, but I just wanted you guys to see what it was like. I'm sure you all know, if you all live in this part of the country, you've been outside today or you've looked out the window. If you don't and you're abroad, that is how bad the weather has been. It feels like it's calmed down a little bit. Where are we just now? 3:30 in the afternoon. It feels like it's calmed down a little bit where I am in the north of Newcastle, which is next to the airport. But I've actually just had a quite entertaining couple of hours. Is entertaining the right word? I don't know, but certainly it was pretty mad to see. The airport is literally just out the back here of my house, so just over the fence at the back you can see that row of houses there. So that is where the flight path goes, right over the top of those, and planes coming into Newcastle airport fly right over the top of those houses and into land. So I get some quite good sights sometimes. I remember when Sven Botman arrived, I saw him coming in his private jet and was able to track it on the app. And then when Sunderland signed Enzo Lafille last week, I saw him arriving at Newcastle airport. But it was pretty crazy. I came home from the Newcastle press conference after my quick update to you guys earlier. And as I was driving along the lane there towards the house, I saw a Ryanair flight coming in. And I just kind of saw it between the houses into land. And it got to maybe about what looked like maybe 2,000 feet, like just not far above the houses. And it was coming into land, and normally it disappears behind those houses behind me, and then just got almost level with the houses and then took back off again. It was gusting winds of maybe like 80, 85 miles per hour. And obviously the pilot thought that he couldn't get down, and I was like, wow, that was just, couldn't believe what I was seeing. I raced into the house to try and see a bit more. Opened up the app and watched the pilot circle round 7 times. I kid you not, 7 times over the house, round to Tynemouth out there, back in again. For anyone who's travelled into Newcastle airport, I'm sure many of you have, you'll know quite often the planes come in over Tynemouth and circle round. There's 2 ways in. There's one over Tynemouth, or there's the other one right up through County Durham and into the runway through the other way. But I watched this pilot. It was a flight from Dublin to Newcastle, so just a hop over the water, and he tried for over an hour to land, and he kept getting halfway down and having to come back up and couldn't get. It was quite scary to watch actually in the really high winds. And eventually he got so fed up, he scooted off away, and I was looking at the app because I got quite taken by it. Becoming a bit of a plane geek here, and I watched him, and he flew all the way to Gatwick and landed the plane at Gatwick. So some poor passengers boarded a flight in Dublin trying to come to Newcastle, and they've ended up in Gatwick. Don't know how they're going to get home from there. There was another one right after him, by the way, from Amsterdam, and he landed in Stansted. I watched him try 2 or 3 times and eventually landed in Stansted. In the middle of all of that, there was a Jet2 flight coming in from Krakow. Looked like probably didn't have a care in the world, and he came flying in. I mean, I watched it, the wings were everywhere. It looked like a really, really bumpy landing, and it got to that level where the Ryanair Dublin flight got to, and I thought he's going to go back up here, and he got it down, managed to get it down and landed it. So there were flights landing, but there were also flights not managing to. Now, I think Newcastle have managed to go this afternoon. They were certainly trying, as I'm speaking right now, I think they were trying to get away from Newcastle. So it'll be interesting to see whether they make it or not. Look, I guess Eddie Howe would not have wanted to fly on the day, just you know, it probably wouldn't help with it. I mean, last week he was complaining about the players being fatigued and a bit leggy. I think an early morning flight, an early morning rise and an early morning flight wouldn't really help the energy levels, given the fact they looked tired last week. He was trying to play it down today, but look, I think if he could, he would try and get down there tonight ahead of the game and give the players like the morning just to try and sort of relax and get themselves in the right, not just the right frame of mind, but get their bodies into the right place to play Southampton on the back of what was a really dismal display against Bournemouth last week, wasn't it? And you know, Eddie Howe today again said that at his press conference that it really stung. He said that's one that I'll remember for a long time. He said it was a really hard one to take. It's hurt for a few days now. It still stings. But he did say that he's got no doubt that his team will respond if they do everything in the right way. So I feel it's a good game for Newcastle to have. I've said that a couple of times this season. I said that before West Ham at home, and obviously you lost 2-0 in that game. But I feel Southampton away, I think it's good that you're away from home this weekend. Just maybe take a little bit of the pressure off against a team that's struggling as well. I think it's a good game for Newcastle to get, and if you manage to win and get a few goals, I think everything will kind of feel rosy in the garden again. I actually think of the two games before the semi-final second leg, I actually think Fulham at home is probably the tougher of the two games. Whereas the Southampton one, I think, should take care of itself tomorrow for Newcastle. But there's no doubt they'll still be thinking a little bit about last week, because the players obviously will feel like they let everyone down. And the way Eddie is as well, he says that defeats really stick with him a bit longer. So yeah, look, they've had a week. It's not been a quick fix into the next game, a week to try and prepare. Eddie said he's given certain players some time off, others he's had in training, doing a bit more, and he's tried to cater it for each individual player. So let's see how tomorrow goes. Also some interesting stuff with regards to transfer window today. Firstly, Miguel Almiron, I got the impression the way Eddie was speaking, and you've got to remember whenever he's talking, he's trying to sort of send a message across in as many words without putting things right out there in black and white. And I got the impression the way he was speaking today that Almiron might actually end up staying, which would be fairly incredible for, I think, a third window in a row, because he was so close to going in the summer. They pretty much agreed a deal for him to go to Saudi at the end of June when there was the PSR problems, but he stayed. And then, of course, last January as well, he nearly left and didn't. But I think a combination of him being unable to fully agree personal terms yet, and the fact that Newcastle are in a difficult position, and they only want to lose a player if they're going to get value, hence why offers for Lloyd Kelly have been turned down, verbal offers for Lloyd Kelly, because Newcastle aren't going to just allow a player, and also Dubravka, why Dubravka wasn't allowed to go. They're not just going to allow a player to go for nothing. The deal's got to be right for them, and it feels very much the Almiron one has to be right for Newcastle. It's probably borderline, I have to say, with the figures that are being offered, £8 million plus 3. It's not that big amount in today's market, but of course it would bring some money into the coffers, but it would leave Newcastle massively short in the winger position. And I've been saying now for a couple of weeks, Newcastle are one injury away from either Isak or Gordon for having a real problem, because if one of those two players gets injured, if Isak gets injured, Gordon has to play through the middle, then you've not got anyone to play in the left. You have to bring forward Joe Linton or bring in Willock into one of the forward three positions, who's not looked himself in recent weeks. Or if Gordon gets injured, you have to do the same and Isak stays through the middle. So it feels a bit like bare bones, and at least Almiron's another option there. I can understand why you guys would feel it's necessary to sell him from a PSR situation, but I can also understand why Eddie isn't desperate for him to go, because he probably needs the bodies between now and the end of the season, knowing that the club are very unlikely to add this window. And on that theme, Eddie was asked again today, he was asked directly actually if that was it for the window. He didn't say yes, that is it, but he said, look, unless something comes up that we can't turn down, and you never say never, unless that happens, then we're likely to go with what we've got, which has been no surprise, because that's what he's been saying for weeks now. And he did add that, look, he said, I'm not trying to lie, I'm not trying to intentionally lie to the fans or to send them in the wrong direction with what I'm saying. I try to be as honest as I possibly can, and that's why I think that you're probably not going to add between now and the end of the transfer window. Perhaps if Almiron goes, that might change things slightly, but certainly if Almiron and Dubravka were to stay, I'd I don't think, and Kelly for that matter, I don't think Newcastle will add. And he actually used the word stale, Eddie, today when talking about transfer windows without signing players. And he said that when you go consecutive windows without freshening the group up in any major way, you could run into difficult waters with staleness. So I think he was almost hinting that, look, things maybe aren't that fresh. You can get results like the one against Bournemouth last week, and I don't think he's using that as an excuse, but I think he suggests that look, things can get a little bit stale. He said it's his way and his wish has always been to recruit a player every single window. And he always feels that as a club, either at Newcastle or Bournemouth, they've done very well off the back of that. And he added, of course, in the summer we did add, but we added in a different profile of signing. What he meant by that was players coming in the shape of the two goalkeepers, Ruddy and Odysseus, who weren't brought into play. Odysseus they had to sign, obviously, as part of the Anderson deal. And Lloyd Kelly, who was brought in really as a sort of backup squad player. So not players that were going to come in and improve the starting 11 is what he was trying to say in a polite roundabout way. But I just think the use of the word stale there from Eddie suggests that he feels, having not added the last few windows, that the evolution of the team and the momentum of the team is maybe taking a hit a little bit. And I feel that he feels, the way he's suggesting, the way he's talking, that the failure to add sort of any big name players last transfer window and the one before that, and looks like this one as well, is probably why we get results like the one last week thrown up, and why there's maybe a little bit of freshness lacking from within the squad, because the players enjoy when there's a new player coming in. They get a boost from that as well. It makes them up their game, and it's not something that they've had over the last couple of transfer windows. And I think as for you guys as fans and for us as reporters, I think we can see that as well. You know, there's nothing better than a new signing coming in just to try and give everyone a boost. And on that note, he was asked directly about Kuzanov, the Manchester City defender that signed last week from Lens in France, Uzbekistan international, just 20 years old. And he's been linked with Newcastle before, and Eddie essentially admitted that it was a player that they identified, they tracked and they liked, because he was asked directly about Abakadir Kuzanov, and he said, yeah, we've done the work, we've identified the players that we'd like to sign, we've spoken to the agents, because you have to make the process right beforehand. You can't just start from zero. So, of course, we have seen players we like. Remember, he's been directly asked about Kuzanov here. They've moved to other clubs, and sadly that's part of the game. So it gave a pretty honest answer there to the Kuzanov to Manchester City transfer, and which shows that it's the sort of player that they're looking to bring in and trying to bring in, but it feels like he's another one that's bypassed them. And there's been a few of those over the last couple of years, which I know is frustrating for you guys, but I think Eddie's been as honest as he can in the last couple of press conferences and explained exactly why Newcastle can't go out and spend, and until those revenue streams are increased, and that was brought up again today, and until Newcastle trade better and they manage to sell players for big amounts. And that is why I think in the summer an Isak or Bruno Guimaraes, there's every chance one or both of those could go, depending on where Newcastle are. If they're in the Champions League, I think you've got a good chance of holding on to them, but if you don't qualify for the Champions League, I think there's a good chance one or both of these guys could go, which isn't good, but it would allow you to then go out and recruit and trade and do what you want to do by signing players. And that's kind of what Newcastle has to be. You can't really hold on to the same players forever, because we've seen what with Callum Wilson, Kieran Trippier, and I suppose Almiron now as well, moves turned down by whether it's been player or club, and all three have lost value during that time, and the club probably should have cashed in, you would suggest, when the value of the players were higher, but all three are of significantly less value now than they were, say, this time last year, when they were all linked with moves away last January. So that was the crux of today. And good news for the team, Nick Pope is back, should be in the squad today. He didn't confirm if he would or not. I got try to read between the lines, but I got the impression that he will be involved. I don't think he comes back in. I think Pope will be on the bench if he is fit. And I think Dubravka will keep the gloves until Pope comes in, and when Dubravka makes a mistake, I think the way he's playing just now, and although he probably wasn't as good last week against Bournemouth, conceding 4. He still made a couple of decent saves during the game. I think there's probably an understanding there from Eddie Howe that if he is going to commit his future to the club until the end of the summer, he needs to give him the gloves to keep until he loses them. So there we go on that. Sounds like Callum Wilson is probably still a week or 2 away, but good news on him because it's an option further forward. And of course, remember Harvey Barnes was out for 4 weeks, and that's been, is it 2 weeks now? 1 week? I'm losing track. 2 weeks. So he's probably coming close to halfway through his spell out. So be good to have both of those players back for the cup final. If you get there, obviously there's a lot of work to do, and if Newcastle play the way they did against Bournemouth last weekend, you won't beat Arsenal, and you won't get past Arsenal in the second leg because Arsenal will score 4 as well. So need to up the game, need to start tomorrow at Southampton. Hopefully the flying goes a lot better than the flights I witnessed today. And leave your comments below, guys, and I'll speak to you on the next one. Good luck tomorrow. Cheers now.